welcome to another edition of our ETF Insight series, where we chat with innovative leaders from the ETF and digital assets ecosystem. Today, I'm really delighted to be joined by Dan Izzo, who is the CEO at GHCO, which is a lead liquidity provider here in Europe, covering ETPs and digital assets, and they're also a lead market maker for over 2,000 products. Dan, it's great to see you. So as you know, yeah, thanks. So as you know, the topic for today is fixed income. So let's just kick it off and jump right into it. So first question is, as you know, in Europe, there's only about 25% of the assets across ETFs are in the fixed income space. What's your opinion on what's going to help? What's the catalyst to help grow that piece of the pie? And is there, do you have a suggestion in that area?
Honestly, it doesn't need a catalyst. It's inevitable, right? Like ETFs are just a better instrument in fund structure. And it's just a question of time and adoption. Those assets will flow into fixed income ETFs. The current rates environment has created a challenge for all fixed income, right? Like it just, you're talking about an asset class that historically hasn't gone down ever for a lot of market participants in their entire life. And, we're going through a rates-driven headwind on fixed income. But even in light of that, we still see lots of fixed income flow. It's slowed down the pace, but nothing's going to change the fact that ultimately those assets are going to migrate into ETFs rather than sit in what are otherwise outdated, inefficient, and unproductive fund structures. The ETF is just the better instrument, and the assets will make that migration. You can see it in the United States, which is about a 10-year head start on the migration compared to a European product. But it is inevitable. It's just a better product.
Yeah, and I wonder if maybe I always feel like the issue with kind of the barriers of growth sometimes is that there's a need for education out there. And I'm sure firms like Tabula, which has, their whole suite is fixed income. I'm sure they're out there, making sure that they're doing as much as they can on an education standpoint. But that's interesting. I agree with you. I think that it'll eventually flow in there. It's just taking a lot longer than I think some people anticipated. But so now ESG obviously is much, I know it's growing in the US, but it's obviously very big here in Europe. Do you foresee more launches happening in the fixed income space as it relates to ESG? Obviously, there's a large number of ESG equity products that are constantly coming out. Every week in our newsletter, there's a new ESG product or benchmark change. Do you think that that's going to be the same? We're going to start seeing that for the fixed income space as well?
I think the appeal of ESG is it's agnostic to the asset class, right? People who want to invest in ESG are going to go find that product wherever it is. So I do think that you'll continue to see ESG as a large theme in Europe. And I think that you'll see the same effect in fixed income as you see in equity. Now, fixed income presents its own challenges that don't make it as straightforward as equity, right? The equity level, you evaluate the company gets scored for ESG, and either it's in or it's out. On the fixed income side, there have to actually be available issuances of bonds for the companies that you want, which is not always the case. So it's made slightly more complicated in fixed income, but there's absolutely nothing about ESG in particular that's unique to equities. Look, it's as simple as you go get coffee, and you may choose to go to the coffee shop that sells fair trade, environmentally conscious grown beans because that's what you care about. It's no different in investing. You can find a product, and where there's demand, issuers will provide. So long as that is the key interest of investors, you can rest assured that issuers will develop a product to meet that demand.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I like the analogy, especially knowing that you just flew into London today and you're probably needing a little coffee with the jet lag. So my last question, Dan, so, still obviously talking about the fixed income space, where do you see opportunity for innovation with product launches in the future?
It's always a challenge because The most successful products are the ones that lead the demand. I think everybody and anybody right now would love to have an inflation hedged fixed income quality product. But the market has already moved on a lot of that stuff. And so it's a question of whether you can get a inflation hedged product to market fast enough that you're going to be ahead of the rate cycle as opposed to behind it now. I'm not in the business of predicting whether or not the central banks have overshot, whether or not we're going to see recession kind of force some sensitivity back into the rate environment. It's not my place, but what I do see is I see the flow and I see the demand. And for sure, inflation protected fixed income products have been highly sought after. It's just a very difficult product to launch once rates have already started climbing. It's similarly, we've seen this in the past with currency hedged products. I think the yen now at 144 to the dollar makes a really strong case for dollar investors who bought currency hedged Japan exposure. The problem is are you going to pile into it now, or it's basically a judgment call on has the yen made its move and is now going to revert, or whether there's still more room to the downside for the yen. It's a difficult call that luckily I don't have to make, right? We just make a price and let investors make that choice. The hard part is for issuers trying to be in front of the trend rather than chasing the trend. That's why they're their side of the business and I'm on my side.
Yeah, and I mean that's the same for equity ETFs as well. If you chase the trend, it's unfortunate. You're going to miss out on that opportunity for inflows. But Dan, this is really great. I appreciate your insights. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for watching. And if you want to watch this video again or other videos like this, you can go to blackwatersearch.com. Thank you.